Boys, UFC Fight Night, Walker versus Zhang. This Saturday, our ass is going all the way out to China. We're going to have some tongue twister ass names in this card. That being said, we're going to run through every single guy on this card. With that being a tongue twister or not, we're going to run through them. Give you guys my rare predictions on who I think is going to win and how. And first off, yes, I know this video is hella late. Usually we get these videos up by Monday. This video is probably coming out on Friday. I'm not going to lie. It is what it is. That being said, you know we're still acing this card. Let's get into the prelims. Light heavyweight division. Uran Satybaldiev, Foxy, tongue twisters already. Taking on Diyar, Nurgozhay, I think. I don't know. Tongue twisters. I'm going to get canceled for one of these. Mark my words. But with that being said, Uran is a well-rounded fighter. He has a good finishing rate by KO submission. He's a good size for the division, good striking defense, but doesn't have the most experience against high-level fighters. And, you know, he does have a pretty low striking output and accuracy and can struggle against some of these high-output strikers, putting him on the back foot, where Diyar is he has a background in wrestling. He has a good ability to finish the fight both on the ground and the feet, but he looked like shit in his last fight. He looked like hot garbage in his last fight, and I can't pick him to win this one. I think it's going to be competitive throughout 1 and 2. And round 3, I think we're going to find a shot here that's put Diyar out. I'm going Uran in round 3 KO. Let's get into the bantamweight division, though. Xiao Long taking on Su Young Yu. And, you know, Long is this well-rounded fighter, good KO power, good submission threats, very dangerous in the first round with some good accuracy, timing. Even though he's a dangerous finisher, he hasn't had that same level of danger in the UFC. And I'm not gonna lie, he's been a little bit of a decision merchant inside the UFC, where Yu is, a non-stop wrestler who constantly attempts takedowns. Almost like, he's almost like our favorite little Asian Marab out here. But, he's constantly working for a submission. Both of these guys are known for their ground game. And because of that, I think we're going to have one of these classic fights where it's two wrestlers who just stand up the entire fight. And because of that, I think Yu's going to be the better striker out of the two. And not going to lie, I think Yu is just better everywhere. With that being said, I think it's going to be a pretty dominant decision win for Yu. I think Long is going to start slowing down as the fight goes on. And, we have Asian Marab. He's just going to keep building and building. I'm going 30-27 for this fight. Let's get into the featherweight division. Yizha taking on Wilson. Damn. I just know these names are getting absolutely butchered in this video. And it is what it is. But Yizha is a well-rounded, I don't even know if that's how you say this dude's name, but well-rounded fighter, good KO power, dangerous submission threats. He has a good reach for the division at 71, and he has some explosive offense with good effective striking, good accuracy, defense, and good durability. But he can start fading as the fight goes on and has pretty weak takedown offense. Like, he barely gets these takedowns, where Wilson is a good grappler, dangerous submission threats. He has okay KO power with some good BJJ transitions and some decent submission setups and threats here, but he has a 73-inch reach, and 6'1", usually has the advantage in featherweight against most of his other fights. And his striking defense, weak, and chin, very worrying, being KO'd in the first round many times at this point. And honestly, dude's just not UFC level. Both aren't that great of fighters, but Wilson's defense is trash, and his chin is just too bad for me to pick. I'm going Yizha getting a first round. I'll go early second round KO, finding that chin of Wilson. Again, I don't think either of these dudes are that great, but I just don't think Wilson is really UFC level. Middleweight division, though. Michel Pereira, Kyle Daukaus. Daukaus getting dragged back into the UFC, but Pereira is a high dynamic and unpredictable striker who has some skills in wrestling. We've seen him submit some guys here and there, but usually just using his brute strength. He has some of the best, pure athleticism and explosiveness in the UFC, often just overwhelming his opponents and opening up really big in the first round. But as we saw in the fluffy fight, if you can weather the early storm, this dude don't got cardio to go 2 rounds. But Kyle Daukaus, a dangerous submission threat with good grappling, decent KO power, but he has consistently struggled against high-level fighters. And I don't care if this dude is on a 2-3, even if he's on a 10-fight win streak outside the UFC, he is not UFC level. Plus, this is a short-nosed fight for Kyle. It's going to be a round 1 KO for Michel Pereira. Let's be realistic. Kyle Daukaus is not UFC level. And even if he can weather the early storm of Michel Pereira, I just don't think he can get it done over Michel Pereira. I don't think he'll have much. I could see him maybe taking down Pereira. But other than that, holding them, doing any significant work, I don't think he has that in his arsenal. But let's get down to lightweight. Rongzhu taking on Austin Hubbard. Rongzhu is a good striker who is really good at picking his shots. He has some good power, but he can struggle on the back foot and can overreact a lot at some feints. And, fairly well-rounded. He isn't afraid to mix in some takedowns during the fight, where Austin Hubbard, well-rounded fighter who can struggle being taken down, but when he does get taken down, he has good setups and some good scrambles. He's just fairly well-rounded, but mid everywhere. I think Rongzhu will just be the more active fighter on the feet, but if Austin Hubbard comes in here with a game plan of let me pressure this dude up against the cage, he will win this fight. Mark my words, if Austin Hubbard is out here pressuring Rongzhu, he can get it done, because Rongzhu is just garbage when he's getting pressured on the back foot. I think Rongzhu is going to be too active on the feet. He'll be too fast for Austin Hubbard. I do think it'll be a close fight, 29-28 decision win for Rongzhu. However, if Austin Hubbard's on here with a good game plan, he can definitely get this one done. Let's get into flyweight though. I believe this is the main. Nope, this is the co-main of these prelims. Loner Kavanagh, Charles Johnson. Kavanagh, a very, very fast-paced striker with some great footwork, good speed, good power, and has some good fight IQ. He won't just chase a KO. He has enough cardio to go all 3 rounds, but his volume isn't the highest at times, where Charles Johnson is a very technical striker with some decent takedown defense, good speed, good output, cardio, being able to go 3 rounds easily without a problem. However, all of his losses in the UFC are against high, good quality fighters who started turning into a wrestler because they didn't want to stay striking with Johnson. We saw what this dude did to the boy Joshua Van. Charles Johnson is no joke. However, I think Loner Kavanagh is going to be too fast. He'll start too early for Charles Johnson. Johnson usually someone who lets the first round go and picks it up in the second and third. I think he'll be behind at least one step, maybe not the entire fight. For sure, early in the fight, he's going to be one step behind. He'll probably make it closer and closer as the fight goes on. I'm leaning a little bit more towards Loner Kavanagh in this fight. I think he's a great prospect. Easily going to be in the rankings probably by the end of the year if he gets past Charles Johnson. With that being said, 29-28 decision. I'm going Loner Kavanagh, winning round 1, round 2, and then dropping round 3. Maybe Charles Johnson makes it close in round 2. But again, I think Loner Kavanagh is going to get this one done. It could be a split decision too, but I'm going Loner Kavanagh. Moving down to the main event, lightweight division. Maheshate taking on Young. Is that how you say it? I don't know. Maheshate is a, dangerous first round fighter with some decent power, okay submission threats, good boxing, good wrestling, and a decent frame for lightweight. He has slow striking accuracy and okay defense, and pretty bad takedown defense with okay cardio, where Young is this explosive striker with good power, a strong clinch game, good cage control, and is really good at the close range exchanges. He has some good wrestling and decent takedown defense, as well as his cardio is good. He has good cardio, but this dude just hasn't fought any top tier competition. That being said, I think from what we know, what we've seen, Young is all around the better fighter. However, Maheshate is more proven, and on paper, Young is better. I'm getting into my Anthony Smith era. On paper, Young is better, but he just hasn't fought anyone good for me to be here like, yeah, he's fought this guy, so he's gonna beat Maheshate. No, I don't think so. I think Maheshate is gonna get it done. I think Young might be low-key a little bit too overrated. Yes, again, on paper, he is better, but we don't know how that translates when he fights someone who's actually decent. That being said, 29-28 decision win, Maheshate. Let's get into this main card now, welterweight division. I don't even know how I'm going to try to pronounce this shit. Taiyilake, Nueraji? I think so. I'm low-key dyslexic, so don't roast me too much in the comments. Taking on Kiefer Crosbie. Now, I'm just going to call this dude Ty. Ty is a dangerous KO fighter with 100% of his wins coming from finish. He has some dynamic striking, explosive and accurate striking with, a 67-inch reach, but doesn't have the best grappling and hasn't fought any real high-level opponents. Where Kiefer Crosbie, well-rounded, good KO power, and okay submission game. He has some pretty good accuracy and volume with good durability, good takedown defense, and a BJJ brown belt and black belt in kickboxing. His ground game, definitely the weakest point in his game, and he can struggle against high-level wrestlers. At this point, I did say that Tai hasn't fought any real high-level opponents. It's going to continue on. Kiefer Crosbie isn't that high-level. Crosbie, too old, and at the end of the day, is not UFC level either. Round 1, KO for Tai. I think we might see one of the best knockouts of the night in this fight. Let's keep moving down, though. Flyweight division. Sumudaerji taking on Kevin Borjas. Sumudaerji is a fast and accurate striker with a 72-inch reach, which he's really good at using to control his distance. However, he hardly has any power, and he is... he has a very limited ground game and terrible submission defense, where Kevin Borjas is a good striker who will mix in combinations well. He can use a variety of different strikes. He has good takedown defense. And at the end of the day, I think this is going to be a striking battle. Borjas is just a better striker. And I think if Sumudaerji wants to get this to the ground, Kevin Borjas' takedown defense is good enough not to get taken down. I think Kevin Borjas is going to do pretty much whatever he wants to Sumudaerji in this fight. 30-27. I don't think Sumudaerji is going to have much success at all in this fight. I'm not going to lie. Let's get into, is this a featured fight? I think it is. Salty man Sergei Pavlovich taking on Waldo Cortes Acosta. Pavlovich, a powerful striker, mostly like a boxer with some good speed and power, and he does really good when things start to get scrappy, but if it stays technical, he does tend to struggle like we saw in his last fight. And it's not like he has a granite chin or anything. We've seen him get chin before, and it's not impossible to take this dude down. Where Waldo Cortes Acosta, a fun striker who's tough and has some power with a decent chin. It's not like this dude has a granite chin either, but it's a decent chin. He has a blue belt in BJJ, and again, I wasn't the biggest fan of this dude when he fought Andrei Arlovsky, but he's starting to grow on me. He's starting to get a little bit better and better out here, but this is a crazy fight. You look at this and on paper, you're like, yeah, Sergei gets this done in round 1. I don't know about that, though. I said this a few months ago when this fight first got announced, but am I retarded for thinking that Waldo Cortes Acosta gets it done here? Because I think he gets it done. I think Acosta is going to be too fast. He's going to have enough durability not to get chinned out here. And the only thing is, I don't think he finishes Sergei. I don't know if he tries to go for a takedown here. Before, again, in that Andrei Arlovsky fight, Acosta was just being a dickhead the entire fight. That's why I wasn't the biggest fan of him. He's kind of more dialed in now. He's not as much of a showboater. Yeah, I mean, he still is, but not to that extent. He's more dialed in. I think at the end of the day, he's going to be too fast. His footwork it's going to be like a Jared Cannonier versus MVP fight. That's how I picture this fight going down. 29-28, decision win, Waldo Cortes Acosta. Let's keep moving down, though. Co-main event. Brian Ortega, Aljamain Sterling. This is the fight I wanted for Aljamain Sterling the moment he moved up to featherweight. I'm glad we're finally getting it now, but it might be too little too late at this point. Brian Ortega, a dangerous submission threat with a black belt in BJJ. His striking is pretty ass, usually getting outstriking in every single one of his fights. But, he sharpened his beak. He's got new talons, and he just never gives up. Even when he's getting dog walked, this dude never gives up. Where Sterling, an elite grappler and submission threat with a black belt in BJJ, very strong top control and control time, and has some effective knees, good transitions to takedowns, good striking volume, good accuracy, but literally has pillows for fists. I'm not going to lie. This dude has absolutely no pop in his shot. He has no power at all, and his striking defense is pretty weak as well, but at this point, this is what I mean by too little too late. At this point, Aljo is just the way better UFC fighter. Brian Ortega has declined so much in his UFC career, especially as of recently. I'm going 30-27 for Aljamain Sterling. Again, there was a point in time where Ortega was very, very good. That is not the case anymore. It's a complete opposite of that. I think usually you say, okay, this current version of this fighter just dominates, a version of him 4 or 5 years ago. I think Brian Ortega 4 years ago mops the floor with the Brian Ortega of now. Let's get into the main event though. Light heavyweight division. I don't know if we even really need to break this shit down. Johnny Walker, I guess I'll do it for the shits and giggles, but Johnny Walker, you know, a crazy, athletic, explosive fan favorite, standing at 6'6" with an 82-inch reach, huge reach for the division. Walker is pretty much nothing but a dynamic striker with unpredictable and creative striking and movement. He has a strong clinch game with effective knees and elbows, but because of his wild style, he lacks any real fight IQ, and he does get caught, and he gets caught pretty much every single one of his fights. And his shin is, I used to say his shin is one of the worst in the divisions. It just might be one of the worst in the sport as a whole, I'm not gonna lie. Where Mingyang is a dangerous fighter with some crazy KO power, good accuracy, good submission skills, and a 100% finishing rate. However, he has a very limited amount of experience in longer fights and is fairly unproven. You know, his best win is a old man Anthony Smith. With that being said, the 100% finishing rate is staying alive in this fight. Easy round 1 decapitation. You know, I think Walker is getting put out bad. It's going to be one of those KOs where we're thinking, what the fuck are we doing with Walker anymore? Why is he even here? Why doesn't he try to move up to heavyweight? It's going to be a sad one. It is what it is. Let me know in the comments below, what do you guys think of this card? Rate on a scale of 1 to 10. And yeah, are we watching this entire card? I know for some of us it's going to be hella early in the morning. So let me know, are we planning on watching this entire card? Put it in the comments below. I'm half debating whether I should live stream this one. Let me know in the comments below. That being said, thank you guys for watching to the end of the video, and I will see you guys in my next video.